Welcome to a fine gaming experience, everyone. Brix here with my usual co-host.
Hey, it's Ice, and just around this time, they finally put out the very final patch to Iceborne, and Monster Hunter World as we know it is done. They're just doing cycling of things and whatnot, so it's the end of an era, but the game is still phenomenal. If you haven't played it, go pick it up, so you can play as Ryu.
Just doing his impersonation of the Mouse Killer Chef there.
I absolutely love that we're, for once, not... Oh, he's shouting at you.
Yeah, get out of my space. This is mine. Don't get behind the chef counter.
I love that you subverted expectations and put us outside the room for once.
Yes. I gotta do some different stuff. I only have so many animations I can do. Time for another new weapon, though. And this used to be one of your favorites, and I've kind of grown attached to it a bit. The good old insect glaive.
It's a very versatile weapon. It does so many things. It's great on aerials. It's got phenomenal reach and special ranged attacks. There are some problems with it. If anybody here is not a fan of weapons that you need to buff and constantly kind of keep your bonuses up, you will not like the insect glaive, because unlike all the other buff weapons, the buffs for the insect glaive are essential, especially the red buff. If you remember one of the episodes back when we were first using it, pre-Iceborne, there were some really interesting things about it where you could collect a red, a yellow, and a white buff, and each of those give you different benefits. The red enhances your combos. When I say enhances, I don't mean does more damage. I mean, you literally get new combos. The weapon is almost completely different in the air and on the ground, and you get about double the number of hits where you would normally get only one in the original version without the buff on. Also, as you can see, it's got the Kinsect, and the Kinsects have special attributes on them. This one specifically does a little bit of thunder damage, and you can see it's got power, speed, and healing. Now, healing actually doesn't quite affect what people think it affects. It actually affects how quickly the Kinsect's able to kind of restore stamina and come back to you. The speed of it is how fast it'll reach a target, and it's probably the most important thing you've got. And power is how much damage it actually does. Power is a very good thing. Some Kinsects later on can actually do upwards of 30 or 40 points of damage on a good hit, which is a lot of damage when you just put them on all offense. But we'll go into more about the insect glaive soon.
And all the new moves they put in definitely helped the insect glaive do what it does. But the handler here, as we can see, is basically crapping her pants over this next assignment. Confluence of Fates. Now, this was the original last boss.
Mm-hmm. And it still somewhat is a last boss. I would say it's kind of the last boss of the main story. But afterwards, there was a whole bunch of more stuff that came out. One of the things that's actually very interesting about Monster Hunter is they're very big about DLC. And when I say DLC, I mean free DLC. You pay for the game, they will give you a boatload of new stuff. In fact, all the people who ended up picking up Iceborne still got a whole bunch of the cool features that came with Iceborne without even paying for the expansion. But the expansion gave you a ridiculous amount. And they don't always actually do full expansions to games. That's not something that the Monster Hunter team does. I'm actually playing Rise right now for the Switch, and they just released their first major patch, which I think added somewhere around 15 new hunts, 8 new monsters, and weapons for every single one of those, new armor skills, and it's free. It's just, hey, we're still working on the game. They do a very big live support thing. As I said, they just finally, I think it was probably near the start of 2021, I think is actually where they finally said they were going to be ending support for Monster Hunter World. But that doesn't mean the servers are down. And that doesn't mean they're not going to have events running consistently. It just means there's not going to be any community run content or new things like this cool Ryu skin we've got going on.
It's interesting that you mentioned DLC too, because all the actual quests and whatnot are free. Like you say, you can get a lot of new poses and just movement stuff for your interactions with other players. But oddly, a few of those are what you pay for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You pay for basically flavor options.
And it's nothing like you're getting, here's a new weapon that will completely unbalance the game or something dumb. Or only I have access to this monster with kick-ass armor or such. It's a pretty level field for everyone.
Capcom actually has done very well. The Monster Hunter team, I feel, loves what they're doing, and just, it's such a love letter, this game, to everything in the past. They love nostalgia, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of drives that nostalgia home as you're playing, but there's no reason to get into it late. In fact, there is a massive difference between playing the original Monster Hunters, the ones on the DS that most people who kind of got back into it know, and World. World is a new experience. Anybody... Oh, God, that's a terrifying shot. World is a brand new experience, and I don't want anyone who's familiar with Monster Hunter to feel like they shouldn't go back and try it, because it's improved in a lot of ways. Some things have been taken away, but it's improved in a lot of ways. And those who are terrified of a difficult action game should play this game anyways, because the feeling of getting better is just... it's the whole point.
We should mention about what they're talking about here. Basically, this place is the crux of every other environment. The Elder Dragons live in the other environments. They come to the Vale and die. And when they do, their energy basically goes into like a life stream and will end up collecting here, which, with Zorah Magdaros, basically, it power charged this area.
Mm-hmm. It's also interesting about Nergigante. They mentioned the idea that Nergigante may have been an important part of the ecosystem.
Which is interesting they bring that up again way later, but that won't be for quite a bit.
I love the look of this area. It's very much like the Elder's Recess.
Yes, it's takes the aspects of it and crystallizes it, to put it mildly.
Just Hadoken it.
Sure you can.
Over countless years, the Elders' bioenergy.
Now, there's a couple interesting things that I admit I don't know the full details of. There is the Tale of the Five, about the Sapphire Star coming in and whatnot. And the Sapphire Star, as I understand it, was like a meteor that was a symbol of hope for everyone. And as it turns out, ironically, that symbol of hope that was the meteor was basically this beastie being an egg. And it landed here. It's an alien monster.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an interesting thing because it is strong against every single element. It has 2 weakness, so you're not going to be doing extra damage with it or anything. Its weakness is poison. So it's kind of that War of the Worlds aspect where the environment and the natural poisons it doesn't have any resistance to, so...
Now, this monster has some very specific qualities. First of all, it is the first giant monster that we have to fight that is somewhat like Zorah Magdaros, but not quite. But, like, you really can't attack its entire body. You can barely reach its head, and you're basically going to spend most of the fight attacking its hands, and when it falls over, you can hit it in the head. So it is a very unique fight. It also has a airborne phase, which is quite terrifying, but the Insect Glaive is a great weapon to use against it, because you can knock it out of the sky without even having any stones or slinger ammo.
And this first area is pretty important too, because there are 2 rock overhangs, and is the only part of the fight that has environmental hazards you can use. So make sure you use them while you can.
Yeah, it will move on after a certain point, so you do need to take care of these. And the Insect Glaive can actually, the Kinsect can actually knock these down. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
I do that with the second one, I believe, actually.
Nice. Now, what just happened there was a special new buff they added, where you actually can use the ammo that you currently have to buff your Kinsect with certain attributes. And those attributes will make your Kinsect stronger.
And it lets you If you look at the Kinsect icon there, it now has 2 parts to it, so you can collect 2 essences at once, which is really, really handy.
Oh yeah.
It also increases the stamina bar for your Kinsect by a huge amount, which is really, really handy for just doing the energy collection and boosting with it.
Okay, so we got I think an orange there. No, we got a red. Lovely. Now you'll notice the combos now have become excellent. Good shot. Yeah, those extra bits of damage are a big deal because it will leave after a certain amount of time and damage, but I think they're not mutually exclusive. So if you manage to do a ton of damage really quickly, it will stay in this phase for a bit longer. Now that attack right there, it gets an upgraded version of it, but one thing that's actually nice about this monster is his weak points are obvious. The glowing pieces. So if you hit him in that part of the tail is a weak point, and the paws is a weak point. So is the head.
Oddly too, so the head and tail are the 2 weakest points, but you can't really hit the head too well. The tail is a fantastic weak point. It's huge, he flails around, so it's pretty easy to hit. The hands are a quasi-weak point, where they will take a bit more damage, but the main thing is hitting them knocks over the monster so you can hit the head.
That diving spear attack is a new attack for Iceborne. And do you know what that actual attack does?
The Dragoon Spear attack is really nice. I like that one. It'll mark the part you hit, and it does one of the most damaging attacks out of all the Kinsect moves, I find.
And the one nice thing about it is because it does mark that part, it's an easy way to go ahead and gather an essence without having your Kinsect actively out and targeting something. So if you don't like the whole, I need to hit this part of the monster with a targeted projectile, you can actually use that to gather almost all of your essences as long as you can hit the part with your weapon on the spear dive, because it'll gather immediately from it. Boom, you've got your essence. And actually a lot of players who find that shooting your Kinsect is just wasting time for DPS prefer to use the new Dragon Spear attack. Also, it looks like a Dragoon dive, and I'm a big sucker for Final Fantasy Dragoons.
I also want to say it's one of the best moves to wake up people with there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Kinsect Glaive doesn't have a lot of good single target hits.
You saw Xeno'jiiva here doing the big breath attack, and if you looked closely, when it does the long, pure energy stream breath, it'll heat up the ground. And you need heat resistance, or you will take slow, gradual damage like you would from a lava area.
You can either do 3 levels of fire resist, or you can do a 3 level of blight resistance. I prefer the blight resistance myself just because it's more versatile.
You want a heat guard for that one. It's
no, actually, blight resistance does work. I've used it before for the ground one.
Well, I was going to say a cool drink would suffice for it as well, though.
Oh, does it really? Okay. I guess it is creating an environment that's big enough.
And another weird weak point that becomes much more obvious is its chest. You can kind of see it glowing a little red there, but that is actually the easiest way to knock it over is hitting that point, although it's not an easy point to hit.
Anything in front of it is just a pain. Another thing I want to say about the Kinsect Glaive, which is somewhat new to it right now, is the buffs, the way the buffs work. So before, when we talked about the Kinsect Glaive, the thing that was so tough about using it was the idea of I must constantly buff. But in Iceborne, they made it a little easier to buff. Actually, I think it was one of those not just Iceborne related patches, but like it came out the same time as Iceborne was available to everybody. They increased the overall buff timers on all the Kinsect Glaive's different buffs. And you can still do... Oh, it's about to fly away. Okay.
On to the next phase.
You can still get a single buff, and then once you get a second buff, it basically resets the timer on both of them. So the best way to play Kinsect Glaive is to like get your red buff, and then throughout the fight, grab your other buffs and throw them on. You can just get all 3 at the same time, but if you hate rebuffing, the best way is just get one, fight a little bit, get another, fight a little bit, get another, and it'll just kind of keep them all on you for a long period. Fortunately, they got rid of that in Rise. Now every single buff is... Basically, once the buff is on, you have a timer, and that's it.
One move I don't really show off too much, I will when the fight is over. The other new move Kinsect Glaive got is a grapple when you're in the air. You basically just do a downward smash with your claw and you can grapple onto a part really easy. The problem is, Xeno'jiiva is the only Elder Dragon outside of our big lava buddy that you can't mount.
Yep. Because you can't mount, you can't do any special grapples to it.
Which is so weird. He's so huge, you'd think he'd be easy to grapple onto, but...
Funny enough, when we make it to Iceborne, a lot of the big bosses you end up fighting in Iceborne, they actually have special techniques you can use against them when you grapple them. In fact, it's almost like part of the strategy in beating them quickly is to grapple.
This is an important move to point out here. He has two variants of it. So, saw right there, he'll go up on his hind legs and just do a... I don't want to say random, but it's a little curving laser blast around him. And sometimes, because it is a baby and doesn't really know what he's doing, gets a little too overexcited and will actually carve a hole in the ground like a cartoon character and fall into it.
Mm-hmm.
Which does leave a little moment where he'll roar and stun you, but then you get free beatings on him.
The problem with that is sometimes he'll dig his hole in the ground and then he'll continue to push his feet down and continue to dig that hole and little explosions will follow. So it's best to take your time on this fight. I know it's a long fight already. Take your time, watch it, and learn its behaviors. Because if you know what it's going to do in different phases, you'll be able to... It has very obvious tells. Here we go. Pause, go in. Boom. Now right there, it takes a second to pull itself out. That's the great opportunity. Look how long it was sitting down there. But yeah, Bricks, that's probably one of the easiest ways to attack those paws or the front of its body is to go right after it does that explosion.
The only thing is, those explosions do a ton of damage. Xeno'jiiva has a lot of tells, and it's very slow for some of its big attacks, but if you get hit, you will feel it. And it's got 3 different energy breaths that we've seen.
Oh boy, nice.
Oh, that was lucky. It's got the big straight-on beam, which is a little ironic if you sit there and block with a shield. Unless you got a lot of guard, you'll just sit there, plink, 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 and then die.
Now, something I'm going to say about the... Oh, nice.
There goes the tail.
Nicely done. Yeah, you've been focusing on that. Something about the glaive that not a lot of people really understand is the glaive is a great weapon for aerial combat, but aerial combat should always be secondary to your ground combat. He's doing 40, 35 per hit with all of his ground attacks. The arrow's only doing 18 to 20 or so. So it is a much more powerful ability to just hit them on the ground. But this is one of those fights where you can get so many aerial hits that, and it's safer, that I actually recommend aerial over ground-based fighting.
You see me a couple times throughout this fight, I'll do the pole vault leap away, especially when he does the paw smash into the ground with the explosion. It's a great dodge move, and just being in the air stops you from taking the heat damage, avoiding some of the basic attacks. It's not as damaging, but it's more evasive.
And this right here is a great time to have attacked him because he's actually quite weak in this phase to aerial attacks. And the ground, you can only really hit like 1 or 2 claws, and he's shooting beams down there, so you probably don't want to mess that up.
As you saw right there, threw himself into the ground because he was careless.
That spinning one-handed slash that ends the combo, that is the highest damage move out of any of the Insect Glaive moves, and it does a lot. I think there did almost 100 points of damage with just that one swing.
The first phase with this boss, too, was a little introductory. That was nothing to worry about in the first phase. This is the phase where everything gets powered up, though. Like, this is when the paw smashes start exploding, and it gets even more powerful. That was only phase 2, and it's got 3. But basically, if you see its chest glowing and all that stuff, expect a lot more damage and explosions from its attacks.
Uh-oh. Okay.
It is hard sometimes to see properly in this fight. I do apologize for that, but when it's so big and I'm flying all over the place, there's not much I can do.
You can use your slinger while you're on your back and knocked down by an enemy like that. Remember that, because I have never remembered it the entire time playing the game. I see Bricks do it all the time. He gets knocked over and hits it in the face with some pods and knocks it back, or in this case, knocks it over. And I'll just sit there like a goof mashing the control pad to try to get back up.
It's one of the reasons I love my scatter pods, because a lot of monsters will do some sort of grapple, throw you to the ground, and then prepare another attack before you can get up. But scatter pod them, and they'll be stunned for a second, giving you enough time to get the fuck out.
Oh, he comes in again. He has a lot of this. The charge is very easy to avoid if you're just to the side of him, and he does give you a lot of opportunities to sharpen. Now, there's a phase we have not seen yet. I am going to mention it's coming up probably pretty soon because of the damage you're doing. But the aerial phase is probably the worst part of this fight. Now, if you're playing a ranged weapon, it's not so bad. Kinsec Glaive also has some options. But to those of you who are playing like a greatsword or dual blades or anything that doesn't have a ranged attack option, you're going to want to keep an eye on the mini-map and figure out where the little pods and whatnot have fallen down. I think he drops bomb pods, dragon pods, and piercing. I think he drops all of those. So keep an eye on where those are and pick them up when you see them.
One thing I like about this boss, if you're a weapon user that gets extra bonus out of having the pods.
Sorry, as a Kinsec Glaive user, I see you missed that last hit. I'm like, no, it's so much damage. But you're doing phenomenally well. Like, it is a really good, persistent weapon.
And the extra boost with the Kinsec getting 2 pulls is, like I said, very handy. One thing I find neat, too, with cutting off the tail is this monster is so large, you get 2 carves off his tail. So it makes it really worthwhile to knock that off. I should also point out, this is Clone Fiona. I had a problem with my initial recording. Well, the aerial phase isn't too bad if you do have a way to hit him, because he falls down really easy with just a few hits.
Yeah, and unfortunately we had some very odd skippy moments in the recording. This one looks beautiful, much, much better, no issues. But the last one had some severe issues, and just because of the way the game, of course, advances when you do certain things, you had to go back and level that other character up and go through a bunch of challenges just to get this right, which, you know, that dedication can be appreciated, I would say.
I'm not going to put out a really subpar quality, and I'm a little apologetic over the last one for those that weren't happy with it.
Yeah, it was a pain to do the recording for, too. I'll say that much.
Our Palico is using the Vigor Wasp ability, and while I won't show it off here, once you get it past rank 10 with Iceborne, the Vigor Wasp gets a fantastic ability to revive you if you die. You won't come back with much health, but your Palico will basically go up to your corpse, smash a Vigor Wasp into your brain, and bring you back to life. You'll give him a little thumbs up, which is kind of cool.
Vigor Wasp is an excellent choice for this fight for a number of reasons. This enemy will do considerable amounts of damage, and it's just a very long fight. So you do have a tendency to run completely out of your potions. Now, I have done one fight against it with not using a single healing item, but that was with my best weapon, fully kitted out for the fight, and using poison, and it still took like 50 minutes to do. Like, it was right on the edge.
I've gotten used to him. He definitely has a lot of quirks, but it is a long fight. I'm trying to remember the exact number of hit points on him, but it is a lot.
Yeah, he has a lot more hit points than most of the other monsters you fought up till this point.
The breaking points are interesting too, because you can break the paws, but he'll still get knocked over just from hitting them afterwards.
Yeah, which would be a pain. If you couldn't knock him over afterwards, yeah, that'd be bad.
The horns can be broken, the wings, it looks like, have already broken here, and of course the tail, as you've seen, can be cut off.
Oh, he keeps doing the charge. This is one of the biggest problems about the Xeno'jiiva fight, is you actually will... Oh...
And I'm standing on the heat. If I hadn't been able to roll to a safe area there, guaranteed dead. So,
oh yeah,
that was very close.
Very close.
But the dangerous thing with him in this form is just not being ready for the extra blasts that go on everywhere.
Yeah, and he's very unpredictable. You will have fights with Xeno'jiiva where he doesn't do any of the weird stuff. Just kind of does these, like, we'll say, like, constant blasts, even though you're standing right in front of it. And when that happens, that's perfect. When you're in a situation where he keeps doing the charge attack's great for those ranged characters, but it's terrible for anybody who needs to be in melee. Oh,
There he
that
goes.
carve up. Nicely done.
It's random if he'll knock himself in the ground, but so nice for an opening, especially if you're playing multiplayer, because then everyone gets a good
This is definitely an enemy that's actually really fun to fight in multiplayer, especially one person gets targeted and... Uh-oh. Oh, no, okay. Hates Loki, apparently.
You and I joke a lot that monsters despise when you sharpen. It's funny how many times we played, and it's like, okay, he's completely going after bricks here. I'm gonna sharpen. And that one moment you decide to sharpen is the moment the monster decides, oh, I'm gonna eat your face now.
Oh, yeah. Now that I use a bow, unfortunately, there is no more sharpening. I mean, I say unfortunately, but I hate sharpening, so I don't mind.
Right there was a good example of being knocked on the ground and shooting off pods. Bomb pods, like scatter pods with their little stun, give you a really good opening. I like using flash pods for that too, but...
Oh, yeah. Anything that you can just give yourself a moment of reprieve.
Xeno'jiiva, though, is completely immune to flash pods.
So, something about Monster Hunter, which I just realized as I was watching this and talking about the fact that I played bow, is I actually started with bow. It was the first weapon I played. I hated it. I just didn't like how it played. I didn't have enough stamina to make it work. And it's kind of amazing that this is one of those games that's very much a, hey, you want to retrain yourself and learn a brand new weapon? There's nothing that stops you. You don't have a build that has certain stats on it. You just equip a weapon and you can use it as well as anybody else. If you want to put in the work and do the grind to get the good gear for it, that's all you got to do. So experiment in the game. I actually say, when you first start off Monster Hunter, you should probably not pick the weapon you're going to use for probably not until you're having trouble during the hunts. Maybe Anjanath.
I wouldn't be surprised, though, if just playing around with weapons, you discover a new favorite.
I'm sure that's something that happened with you doing all these recordings.
Yes, and I started off like Sword and Shield was one of my first ones, and I don't play with it too much now, but I definitely grew to love Hammer and a couple other unique ones, so...
Hammer and dual blades I see you use quite a bit.
Well, I like my good cutting weapons and my knocking out weapons, and they do it great. Right there you saw me redirect the Kinsect since I sent it off to nowhere. It was flying out, I retargeted, and it's kind of handy you can adjust the Kinsect mid-flight like that.
There are times I'll actually fire off a Kinsect shot, and I'm like, nope, that's not going to hit, and I'll immediately retrieve it. Keep in mind that doing those quick retrievals and stuff like that does use up more stamina, but it's more important for you to get the buffs you need than for the Kinsect to lose a bit more stamina.
Very much more important, your hits do more damage than the Kinsects.
If they're not, you probably need to upgrade your glaive.
We haven't seen Xeno'jiiva really do it either, but he's got two different tail swipes. Got one where he'll do a wide sweep like a lot of other monsters do, and another one where he'll just lift it straight up, smash it into the ground, and if he's in his powered up state, that too does explosions. Basically, if he's in his powered state, everything has explosions.
Everything.
Xeno'jiiva's name itself is really weird too. I should mention this. It's a conglomeration of 3 different languages here. And he's dead.
Now that actually was a very quick fight. You did quite well. But still some close calls.
Very close there in one.
The Xeno'jiiva very much fits that umbrella we talked about. You're like, shove and a sharpen. It's just something I need to do. Fits that umbrella of respect your elder dragons.
So much so.
Even your baby elders, which really doesn't make a lot of sense if you think about it.
Freshly hatched and just very angry, but
Wait,
I do like how it has some...
Did you just get a tail part off its wings?
Maybe.
And I think you didn't get any tail parts off its tail. So another tail? Wow. And how many carves? I think that's 5 carves you get off it.
You get a lot off him. He's one of the biggest carves out of all the elders.
There's the claw ability. Such a cool attack, too.
It looks really awesome. But yeah, his name is interesting too, because Xeno, it's Greek for alien, because he's an alien. Jiva is Hindu for a living being, or something that is imbued with life force, like a golem. And the last part, sorry, there's two different parts here, my apologies.
No, you're good.
Jiva is also Jain for a living organism which survives physical death. So it's an alien creature that absorbs energy and can come back from death, is the translation technically.
Which is a very fitting translation. Monster Hunter likes to borrow from a lot of different cultural ideas, a lot of myths, a lot of legends, so I'm not surprised they decided to go and grab hold of some good language there. Now we got new armor upgrades. Why would they give us new armor upgrades? It's almost as if there's more to do.
There is a lot more to do. It is funny how much actually opens up after this. This is really the real game after this point, I want to say.
Yeah. Now, this is where you start opening up a lot of different things, a lot of special events, a lot of the tempered monsters we're going to have to start describing in the next videos. And there's so much we have to cover. And this is only, I'd say, maybe the first third, maybe first half of our entire adventure.
We're up to almost episode 40 here, so I hope you're in for the long haul.
Commander, she's awake.
What is it with you? All you ever do is sleep and fall off things.
Isn't that a better description of the handler than us?
Stop
Yeah.
being annoying.
Get nearly eaten by monsters when she herself is trying to eat.
All you do is fall off things. Who took care of all the Elder Dragons?
Yes.
Well, good morning.
Where's my coffee?
You deserve a hero's welcome.
Thanks to you, the Research Commission's work is complete.
Oddly, we don't get the heroes welcome so much as they're really, really excited to have found a brand new monster.
Everyone, I commend you.
Here's the thing, they're all scientists, they're all nerds.
Yeah,
This is a big thing.
these are all nerds with swords that just like swinging them
Mm-hmm.
and are very happy to eat. I love the town, too. I don't know how long it's been since I mentioned the layout of the town, but it is really neat to see the layers.
Well, we did it.
What are you gonna do with all those crash ships, right?
We crash landed here. Started
Make
to
them into
wonder
more
if we
armor.
made the right choice. But the new world was
Turn them
all
into
we
buildings.
wanted and more.
I do find it interesting you go back to your starter armor for this. Like, we're not going through the cutscene as Ryu.
May I? If not for you, I might not be alive. Thank you.
Oh, once a hunter, always a hunter.
Eccentric group here, but all of them talented.
An eccentric hunter.
unique, driven.
The field team leader is feeding one of the birds.
And the birds are...
You all seem well.
They're all wasted.
Your own mind.
That's something we're going to have to show off sometime is arm wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Although, I think you have beaten me arm wrestling every single time we try it.
I am a professional button masher from the days of Nintendo. I've destroyed many a controller.
I do have a new one. I could work on breaking it.
They cost so much money now.
Oh, sadly.
Lurking so close, yet hiding so well.
So is this basically like... He just handed us
Perhaps it was what first
dragon
drew the aging elders
snack?
here, to satisfy its cravings.
Are they
for
eating
energy.
Could
crystals?
be right.
It's probably, if it came out of the cocoon, it's probably more like
Eventually, the land became
what is it? Embryonic fluid crystallized?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it was going to be some osmosis thing where it's like absorbing energy from the crystals, but okay, it can be afterbirth crystals.
Yes. Yes, it's afterbirth crystals.
There goes all my subscribers.
And with a single term, they all left. I think you should keep it. It's gross.
Ah, thanks. I'll just put that in my pocket.
They really do give you an ending here.
Mm-hmm.
Listen up, everyone. We've received word from the guild.
I kind of like this part too. It's
Guild
basically,
commends
yep,
for your
you beat up
dedicated
the
research of
big
the
dragon
Elder
and everything's done
In
here,
light of
so
your
if you want,
findings,
you
we
can
have
go home.
confirmed the
We're done.
monster as a new species of Elder Dragon. An official name has been chosen. Xenojiva.
Sorry for spoiling that, folks.
This concludes your duties with the Research Commission. We
A lot of the
thank you
final
again for
monsters
your
you find are
service.
brand new
You are free to
monsters that you've
return
never
home
seen
at your
before,
discretion.
and they always tack on a brand new name with question marks when you first fight it.
The Commission's
It is a
presence in
neat
the
touch,
new
though, that
world
you've never seen
still
this
has
monster
potential
before,
to
so
be
you
of
don't
great
even know what
benefit
you're
to the
getting
guild.
besides
We would ask
some
you to
membrane
continue
or
your
a
work
wing
there,
or
if you
something.
are so willing. There you have it. If we decide to stay and take on new research, there are bound to be trials ahead. Dangers. You don't want that, do you?
Oh, we're all chicken shit. What, you want to fight? You want to do something about it?
All right.
I wanted to retire. I'm like 900 years old, guys.
Welcome to your new home.
Which is a little ironic that you mentioned that, but I won't go into why.
Hmm.
I better pack on some weight.
No, you don't need to pack on some weight.
Sure she does. How long has that random leg been sitting there?
Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. But, since this is technically the original ending of the game, they do some fantastic artwork and music here for the credits. So I highly recommend you sit through, and if nothing else, just enjoy the audio. But see all the people that put some hard work into this. There is a lot of people. But this isn't the end. Like we said, we got a lot more to come. So I hope you all join me next time, and take care all.
bow.